Good morning and welcome to the Pondering Show here on WKUR, your country road. I'm your host, Doug Ponder, and I'm joining you live here at the Don Franklin Chevy Buick GMC studios in good old Renfro Valley. Well, it's been a great week here for TV. We've had Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on TV Tuesday night. Classic movie Santa Claus is Coming to Town on TV was also on. And then on top of that, we had a man getting eaten alive by a snake. Now, for those of you who haven't heard about it or watched it, the Discovery Channel aired a show called Eaten Alive on Sunday night, where a man in a snake-proof suit was supposed to have been literally eaten alive by a massive anaconda. But a few minutes into the show, just when the snake was starting to squeeze the guy's body and starting to swallow his head, the guy started yelling, "Help! Help! Help me!" Well, they got the snake off the guy in time, and he suffered some minor injuries. But no one cares about the guy's injuries in this country. Ah, the heck with him. That's what us Americans think over here. Now, instead of the guy, we're all worried about the snake over here in America. Now, of course, the Discovery Channel claims the snake didn't suffer any injuries from the incident, but a lot of people are saying otherwise. Some animal rights activists are upset because they claim the female anaconda snake named Shikonda is suffering from her own share of injuries too. Here's the deal. Shikonda was expecting to have a good old time and eat a 5-star meal just to have the guy's staff swarm in like a SWAT team and rip her right off. Now, Shikonda is still alive, but the animal rights tabloids have leaked information that she is at an animal hospital in her hometown where she's reportedly being treated for blunt force trauma injuries she suffered while they were pulling her off her guy. But they also say physical health problems aren't the only thing Shikonda is suffering from. She's also suffering from a broken heart. You see, Shikonda has a similar story to a lot of other girls with broken hearts. Shikonda had a man and she was seriously interested in him. Now, she was a little timid at first, but she eventually fell for him. Things were going well, and for a short time, everything seemed perfect. Then all of a sudden, Shikonda's man decided to end it. Not only end it, but it ended in a physically and violent way. That's not good at all. Now, poor old Shikonda is on a man-hating kick now. She said she'll never be able to get over this heartbreak and that she doesn't think she'll ever be able to trust another man again. Shikonda said all men are the same and they only care about themselves. She said all men are pigs. They're all pigs. You know, how sad. And the Pondering Show here, we send our warmest regards out to Shikonda and we hope she gets over this. But enough about heartbreak. She'll get over it. We have something more important to talk about here this morning. On today's show, we're going to talk about drones and their increasing popularity, their uses, and some of the concerns people have about them as well. We're going to take a quick break, but stay tuned and don't go away. Welcome back to the Pondering Show here on WKUR 94.9, your country road. We are coming to you live here at the Don Franklin Chevy Buick GMC studio in Renfro Valley. Now, our guest this morning is a local drone enthusiast, Robert Crawford. It's an honor to have you in here, and welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. Now, we're going to talk about, and you're just an amazing guy. We were talking in the parking lot before we got in here, and I'm already psyched about this. And we're going to be talking about drones. And for those of you who don't know exactly what they are yet, we're going to get into that. But just to jump in, what is a drone exactly?
Well, a drone, I guess by definition, they call it a remote-controlled pilotless aircraft. And here it says or missile.
Oh, okay. That's not good.
No.
Don't run off that yet, folks. That's not exactly what we're going to be talking. But, yeah, so when were drones first created, and what were they used for?
Well, you'd be surprised. Some of the first drones that I looked up go back to 1917.
Okay.
And then we also have a case in 1944 where the U.S. used a B-24 bomber to attack submarine installations in Germany.
Okay.
Which I found pretty surprising.
That's neat.
Then also in Hollywood, California, there's a company who used their created drones for military training for anti-aircraft gunners.
Okay. And all these are remote controlled. And like you said, they're unmanned.
Right.
And you mentioned the bomber in World War II. That's hard to picture, but it was an unmanned, big, huge airplane that they were flying in the air. Now, talk about something big during that time, especially. And throw a little thing in, too. Ken Hopkins, he was a part of the Stag 1, and they also did the drones, and I can't come up with the details right now, but he was a part of that program too. If you just want to Google Stag 1 during World War II, that's a neat thing too. Now, and a lot of people get confused on this too, including myself. Are drones and they also call a group called radio-controlled aircraft. Are they both the same thing, or are they different?
Right. Short answer is yes. They basically operate on the same way. They use a remote controller. They use radio waves to control the aircraft.
Okay.
And it's basically the same operation.
Okay, because and coming back to our youth, your dad had he has the airport in Bristol Ridge, and that's where a lot of us would gather around there, and we would also fly those model airplanes. Your dad flew them, my Uncle Steve flew them as well, and so those were actually at that time, I guess you could say they were considered drones in one sense, wasn't they?
In some sense, yeah.
It wasn't at the time. They were just called remote control aircraft. That was the term probably used back then.
Right.
Okay, so are there other drones than just helicopters and airplanes, or is that just pretty much the only two types that you have?
Yeah, basically what you see is what typically is called remote control aircraft would be airplanes or helicopters, with a wing, or where the helicopter has a single rotor with a tail rotor. But what we see today is what we call the buzzword drones is usually what we call multi-rotors.
Okay.
And what that does is it just helps to counteract the torque from each prop. So basically you'll have maybe 4 rotors configuration where this vehicle can fly and sustain, a hover a lot easier. So it's a more usable platform.
Okay, I see. So it helps keep it more stable, and like you said, so that's what drones, the term they use for it, that's what it's kind of evolved into from the remote controlled aircraft days. It's more stable and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay. So when were private citizens finally able to purchase what we now consider drones in the media and stuff today? When were we finally able to purchase them, and what did we even use them for then?
Okay, well, pretty much kind of like we've said, remote control aircraft have always kind of been drones. I guess the main difference would be nowadays what we call a drone would be unmanned and able to fly through like a video transmission.
Okay.
And so the operator can actually use a monitor to fly what they call FPV, or first-person view, through the aircraft video feed. And so that's been around for maybe 10, 15 years now, for mainstream usage. So
see, that's the biggest difference, like I said, between a drone is that it's got the point of view, and you could fly it based off that video transmission pretty much. And now the radio controlled aircraft back in our days when we were kids, like when your dad and my uncle had the model airplanes, and you could fly them with the remote control, but you couldn't actually see the point of view. Like, you just had to watch them on the ground pretty much. Yeah,
it's much more difficult than actually being in an aircraft or flying first person view.
Yeah. And that's what drones has done for us now. You can actually fly it through a video transmission and watch it just watching the video. That's pretty cool. So how do these drones that are available to the public work? And you done touched on how they got the video transmission. Like, what are the ranges that they can fly or speed they can fly? And then also different types of pictures and videos that you can use with them too.
Okay. In general, most of them are going to use a high frequency transmitter, so it's not likely to have interference with other signals in the air. But basically, they use a flight, a transmitter that the operator uses by hand, operates the vehicle, whatever they want it to do. They can control it that way. But also, as far as speed goes, the drone that I have is rated at about 22 miles per hour. Top speed, so it's pretty fast.
That's fast, yeah.
The rate of climb is pretty impressive too, as far as just vertical, takeoff.
Okay.
And then let's see, range. You're going to usually have about maybe 1 to 2 miles maximum range, but it really comes down to there's anything in your way that obstructs the signal that's going to kind of hurt that.
Okay, which that'd be like mountains and hills and different things, being in valleys or something like that. Yeah.
Right. And then also, the drones today are pretty much limited by the types of batteries they can have, how powerful those are. So it has to be lightweight, it has to be powerful, and it has to last a while. Okay. So as battery technology develops and gets better, it's going to be easier to keep these things up in the air longer. Now,
and quickly mention the drone that you have and some of the features it has as well.
Okay, what I have is the DJI Phantom. It's a version 1, so it's kind of new, or it's one of their newer, or I guess later models. But basically, what I have is a FPV setup on that where I use a GoPro camera.
Okay.
To I can man the aircraft without being able to see it, so I can see first person view.
Yep.
And take video, take pictures while I'm watching the video.
Just like you're in an airplane or a helicopter yourself.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Pretty much. And then you also mentioned a cool feature when we were talking beforehand. If these things get out of the distance that they're allowed to be, whatever range they are, they have a GPS coordinate where they can fly back to the place where they lifted off from. Is that true?
Yeah, most of them nowadays are operated from GPS location, and they log their position when they start.
Okay.
So if, for instance, I take off and fly away, if I lose transmission from the radio controller, then that thing's going to fly back to where it came from, hover, and then essentially land where it came from. So
it's do all that on its own.
It's a recovery system,
And that's neat. So you won't, because people will picture, like you won't have a drone flying through the air by itself after you've done lost it. It actually comes back home. Yeah. So that's a neat, much needed feature as well.
Right.
We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the evolution of drones and also what we touched about the GoPro cameras and how cameras and video cameras have evolutionized drones. So don't go away. Welcome back to the Pondering Show on WKUR 94.9, your country road. We're in the Don Franklin Chevy Buick GMC studio with drone enthusiast Rob Crawford. Now, we left off talking about, just kind of touching about how we can use cameras and stuff. Right. Now, when did people actually start using drones with cameras and video cameras?
Well, we saw it become pretty popular around the, I guess, around 2007, 2010 time frame.
Okay.
You saw companies like AR come out with a Parrot that came out with a camera installed on it.
Okay, so neat. And then the GoPro camera. Now, that's been a big deal here lately, and I've actually had a 60 Minutes interview with the creator of it and stuff, and it's totally changed a lot of things.
Right.
So what is a GoPro camera, just real quick for people that don't know what it is?
Well, a GoPro camera, from what I understand, came about because the founder basically wanted a really small, compact camera that he could wear on him to show, his point of view.
Yeah.
And so for action sports, anything like that, it's a very small, high-quality camera you can use that's durable.
And it's like the people that watch the videos are seeing it from your eyes, pretty much, like you said.
Right. It's got a wide view.
Yeah, it's got a wide. And I think he created it. I watched it as a neat documentary. He created it for surfers, and it just boomed. People started using it for everything in the world, racing, whatever they use it for everything, pretty much. And it took off like no other. And now it's being used in drones. So what role has the GoPro camera played in the drone world?
Well, it's interesting to see that companies like DJI with the Phantom, it seems that they basically created the Phantom as a aerial photography platform. Okay. And they made it, they come with an attachment for a GoPro. So they basically made it for the GoPro to be able to operate it as an aerial photography platform.
And I think it's good that those two companies were able to work together to bring something that good to people.
Right.
You don't see that too often in today's business world much.
Right.
But yeah, so they made it to where you can install that, and they also got different accessories as well, which is like what something you have. What is it that you have that's able to feed the?
Well, I have an aftermarket video transmitter that operates off a separate battery, and that's patched into the video outport, basically.
Okay.
So whatever it sees, it sends out a signal, and I pick that up on a monitor, so I can see it while I'm flying.
That's neat. So are the majority of drones that are now available, do they make them now to where a camera or a video camera is already installed or attached to them without the GoPro?
A lot of times they are, especially for those just getting into the hobby.
Yeah.
There's a lot of models that have their own cameras built into them with a stabilizing gimbal, or some of them are just solid mount.
Okay.
But there's also, for those who are more advanced, they sell just a platform where you can add your own camera. A lot of quadcopters now have the capability of carrying a large DSLR, or digital SLR camera.
Yes. And for those who don't know, that type of camera is a camera that professional photographers use to get those creamy backgrounds and those great high quality images, pretty much. And that's what I would want if I get drone, which I know that'd probably be pricey, but it's well worth the cost though.
It is
when you fork it over. So what's the type of different cameras and video cameras that people can use now? You mentioned the DSLR. Can you use even more higher quality things than just the typical snapshot type stuff?
You could. It really just depends on how much money you've got, you're willing to spend. A lot of movie companies I've seen, they use basically a multi-rotor with 8 rotors.
Okay.
So it's a much larger platform.
Oh, wow.
And they can carry even larger cameras that are high enough quality for movie photography. So they're using those in place of helicopter shots, basically.
Okay, so we're probably seeing movies now that's shot from drones.
Most likely.
Right.
Most likely.
I've never thought of that before, but that's probably true. Wow, that's amazing. So we were talking about, too, we got these drones now, and what all can they actually be used for? You mentioned the movie, making movies and stuff. What are some other uses that could possibly be used for?
Well, some of the uses that are going on right now, farmers are using them to basically inspect their crops certain times of the season. You can use them for surveillance, just in general. Companies use them for construction sites to, see how the progress or what's going on. Inspecting maybe like pipelines, things like that.
Yeah.
And even, stuff as far as for large buildings, anything like that, you can basically inspect with them.
Without even having to actually physically walk and inspect it yourself. You can just fly your drone around.
It's much easier.
And when you mention the farmers, like I even picture like the big, ranches out west and stuff that have the cattle and all that, and I could see them flying those drones without having to actually fly in a helicopter themselves. They just sit at home and fly the drone.
Right.
And check on cattle and see if one's calving or down or whatever. So that's there's all kinds of uses. And I also thought about too it can even go into like maybe search and rescue, all kinds of. It's unlimited pretty much, isn't it?
Right. And we're seeing that being moved in that direction.
Yeah.
And it really just depends on what you can put on the multi-rotor. And what the uses are, as, for instance, infrared cameras or heat-seeking cameras for use with, fire rescue situations.
Yeah, because we have we've actually had a month ago we had a hunter fall off a cliff, and we've had some and that happens sometimes. And when they're real deep in the woods, far from roads or trails or whatever. If you have these drones, they can just fly these drones around while they're also, physically looking. And if the drone spots them, they know exactly where to go. It could save lives in a lot of ways, especially during the nighttime.
Yeah, like presumably so.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And I know if I was a hunter or a hiker or something, and I fell off a cliff accidentally, and seeing that drone actually come, and in the future that'll actually be a sign that, hey, I'm going to be safe.
Right.
Somebody's flying this and they're going to come help me, so it's just neat to think about. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we talked about the positive stuff. Now we're going to kind of shift into some of the negative things or people that's worried about with these drones and talk about the restrictions or possible restrictions, so don't go away. Welcome back to the Pondering Show on WKUR 94.9, your country road. We are joining you here at the Don Franklin Chevy Buick GMC studio with drone enthusiast Rob Crawford. Now, we talked about some of the positive uses for drones, and now we're going to transition into what are some of the negative uses that drones can possibly be used for that has some people worried about. So what are some of those?
Right. Well, just like anything else, drones are tools, and they can be used in good ways, and they can also be used for bad things.
Yeah.
I guess some of the examples we have seen as of late, paparazzi using them to spy on.
Well, that can almost be a positive, as we enjoy it. No, just kidding. But yeah,
it depends on who you are.
Right.
But paparazzi, maybe nosy neighbors, spying on their neighbors or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then obviously the possibility of terrorist use or something menacing as that. That's always
it's always an issue with anything, cars, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And I read an article on that, and people are worried about that. They're worried about people strapping some type of weapon or bombs onto these things and just flying them somewhere.
Right.
And that's a big worry. And that too. And then I've also read about the people that rob or burglary, or something like that. People worried that they're going to fly it over and look over things, and then when the people are gone, they're going to find they already know what they want, and just stuff like that. People are worried about kind of invading their privacy and stuff. So with that being said, Now, what are the current laws and restrictions on drones to help prevent those things from being used in negative ways?
Okay, currently, basically the laws from the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, basically fall to hobbyists, which says that you can fly it basically in public areas or on your property, or property of someone if you have permission. You can fly it up to or below 400 feet elevation above ground level, and anything above that's going to be in airspace where aviation, airplanes, helicopters are going to be flying, and it becomes a danger at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
They should also be flown away from airports or any air traffic, and should be kept within sight of the operator at all times. And curiously enough, commercial use of drones right now, as it stands, is illegal. So I couldn't go out and be a for-hire business with my drone legally.
I didn't know that.
What's happening, though, is that there's a change in the laws where there's so much pressure being put on the FAA to come out with more laws or actually allow commercial use that they'll be coming up with new laws in 2015. And I imagine it'd be sooner rather than later because of all the pressure. But as of right now, there's about 6 companies that have been granted the ability to use their drones for hire that are mostly TV and movie companies.
I see. So most of that, and we mentioned this during the break too, just talking, Amazon. I watched that 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes, they're doing a bang-up job. I've done mentioned it 2 or 3 times. But they had a documentary type thing on about Amazon, and at the end of that, the guy showed the interviewer what they were trying to think about doing with drones, possibly food and produce. Like if you order groceries online, you can have all your groceries fly to you to your house just by using a drone. Like so that falls into the commercial status pretty much, and that's probably what Amazon's fighting, right?
Right. Amazon, as well as Facebook and Google, they're all interested in using drones, for their companies for different purposes. And so Amazon is one of those that's trying to add pressure to the FAA to allow them to do so. I think there's a lot of obstacles that'll be in the way for that to happen, to be a safe operation. But I think that over time we may actually see that.
Because there'd have to be some type of control on how many drones you have in the air in whatever certain area, so they don't start crashing into each other or something bad happening, pretty much. You don't want to fill the whole sky full of drones, pretty much. Which if people ordered groceries online, if everybody did, that's what it would be, So they somehow they need to try to work on that to control that, and I'm sure that's what they're doing, because they're a lot smarter than I am, so yeah, I'm sure that's what they're doing. Now, and you touched on this. Now, what are some of the, just you personally, what are some of the laws and restrictions that you see the FFA putting on or letting go of for these commercial reasons?
Okay. Well, the FAA is going to be, like I said, releasing those new laws. And the idea is that they're trying to start with the most restrictive possible right now so that they can get a handle on the growth of these drone uses. And then they're going to slowly release laws and allow people to use them more in commercial use. One of the changes that we'll probably see is that commercial use will restrict the pilot to flying at daytime hours. They'll have to maintain, visual sight of the aircraft. It'll have to maintain 400 feet above ground or lower altitude. And the biggest change will probably be that the pilot will have a low-level pilot certificate to operate the aircraft. So that gets in the realm of the operator having to be a licensed pilot for aircraft. So that's going to restrict, those being able to be used for commercial use and who can actually fly them.
That just kind of shot all my dreams down the tube. So how hard would it be to get one of those?
It wouldn't be too hard.
License.
As it stands, though, that means you'd be taking several hours of flight training in an aircraft. So the main thing is it's just going to be a little bit expensive. I do see, though, that in a lot of ways that will be a good thing as far as education and allowing the person to understand more about the airspace they're flying in and the responsibility that comes with that. But it does restrict that quite a bit.
Yeah, that's true. And for people out here who are listening who have no interest in actually owning a drone themselves but are worried about, like we mentioned, neighbors and stuff flying drones around their house or something, and they're worried about that. And I've read some online where people have been fined, a couple $100 or something, but we all know how that goes. That's a slap on the wrist in today's time. But what can people do to protect it? And see, I kind of voiced my opinion on this. If there's a drone flying around your property, and it's not from somebody that you know. Like we both live on Bruno Ridge. We know everybody, and if I fly a drone over somebody's house, I'm going to tell them, hey, is it okay? You know, ask for permission first. But somebody else who there's a drone they don't know, or somebody, you know, should they have the right to shoot it down or something, or call the authorities? Is that, you know, because fines won't really stop some people. See, that's what I worry about. You know, that's what they're going to have to look at, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the FAA basically has the right to take action against anyone who's doing things in an unlawful manner, or basically endangering anyone or their people on the ground or property on the ground. Yeah. So, you know, they're definitely going to have to be able to take action against anyone that's, you know, doing those illegal acts or, you know, basically pestering people with them. Yeah. So I would say, you know, you can call your local law enforcement or the FAA, get in touch with them, and see what the best course of action
and
would
you know, and I hope the FFA does that and really lays the law down right out of the gate, because, you know, like us, we want to fly drones just for those reasons of getting those aerial shots. Nothing harmful, nothing against nobody, but it doesn't need to be ruined for people like us because somebody else wants to use it for bad reasons. And I hope out of the gate that they just really lay the law down, you know, so people like us can enjoy them, you know, and use them. Yeah. And so hopefully that'll happen. You know, but we know how reliant on our government can be, but I still hope that'll happen. But how and what, as a drone enthusiast, how can we keep that type of thing in a positive light? We kind of touched on that. And do you think that this type of argument will be the same type of argument as gun control? You know, like people trying to use guns for sports, they're trying to ban that. Will drones kind of be put in the same light, you think?
You know, I actually think that is a pretty strong correlation there. Yeah. You know, like I said, they're both tools. You know, they can be used for good or bad. Yeah. It comes down to, you know, some restriction of who can have them, how to operate them. Yeah. You know, but it basically comes down to, I think the greatest thing is education. Yeah. You know, are those people buying them and using them educated on, you know, how to be responsible with them? Yeah. How not to mess it up for everyone else, basically, or hurt others. You know. Exactly.
And that's what guns have come to. You know, when you buy guns, you have to register for them. You know, and you got the hunter's education course. You got different, you know, and then the carry conceal license. You got these things that, like you said, people have to go through. Take education. Anybody that's got felonies and stuff can't have one, and that's what I kind of see drones kind of following the same footsteps, you know, because we got to kind of restrict them to keep them out of these, the best we can, out of the hands of bad people, you know. Right. But we got to keep them for good people too that want to enjoy them. We can't just eliminate them, and that's impossible anyway. Right. They'll be on the black market, no doubt. So, what do you think the future of drones will be? We kind of touched on this, and also, too, why would you encourage everyone to own a drone?
Okay. Well, I don't know that I would encourage everyone to have a drone.
Well, yeah, I said that kind of iffy, yeah.
Kind of goes back to what we were saying, I guess. But, you know, I do think that anyone who, you know, especially young kids who are into aviation, airplanes, helicopters, whatever it be, it's a really stable platform. It's fairly easy to fly. You know, most multi-rotors are. And it's a good way to get into aviation as a hobby. Yeah. And then also with the aspects of aerial photography, you know, and the uses for drones, you know, it's a very intriguing hobby. Yeah. I guess I could say. But as far as, you know, the future of drones and what they might be used for, I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see what comes up, because there's so many different uses for them. It's really just going to depend on, you know, the current laws, what they allow, and the current technology. You know, as those get more improved, we're going to see a lot more uses and a lot more capabilities for them.
You're right. And it's really hard you can't predict the future on these things because it just seems limitless. You know, and they're really amazing, and I'd almost compare them to like the invention of the automobile or something not that huge, but they're getting close. You know, it's going to change a lot of things. Right. And there's a possibility to.
Right. There's a really interesting, I guess, Facebook is looking to do, I think it's Facebook or Google, they're looking to do a long-range, high-altitude, sustained flight aircraft drone that will be solar-powered. And it's going to be able to have a program flight path, and they're going to fly over countries such as Africa or remote areas and be able to send internet, connectivity signals. Wow. So these areas might be able to have internet more readily than by the use of satellites. Mm-hmm. And so that's one use that we might see in the near future.
places that aren't even connected through roadways. Alaska has places like that, and Canada, and like I said, Africa, places that aren't even connected to civilization really will be able to have internet. That's based on that. Now that's amazing. That's truly amazing, and it's just amazing to sit here and talk about this, and it brings me back to memories of our childhood and stuff when we all were flying model airplanes with our, your dad and my uncle and stuff, and these are just amazing things. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Not that I can think of, but just for anyone out there who's wanting to get a drone, I encourage you to do so. Read up on the laws. Keep up on those and educate yourself.
Well, it looks like we're out of time, and I want to once again thank Robert Crawford for coming in and talking to us about this subject, and I want to thank you all for listening, and everyone have a great weekend, and go Big Blue.